Welcome back to Raznosar TV. Today I'm going to show you Mundo Aborigen in Spanish. So this is the world of Aborigines. It's a park, an archaeological, reconstructed archaeological site, which depicts where early Canarians on Canary Island, in this case is in Gran Canaria, Mundo Aborigen, used to live. And this is an interesting park, and I'm going to show you many different parts of it. Founded in 1994, the whole area, it is 11 kilometers away from Playa de Ingles, and so if you go to the highway of Fataga, you will find it here in the area of San Bartolome and in Tirajana, right? And it's a very interesting thing because you can see how early Canarians lived in this area. You see, the whole area is 110,000 square meters, and you will find statues of over 100 statues of early Canarians, how they lived, different lifestyles here, and also the symbols and all these things they had. So early inhabitants were called Guanches, and these were original inhabitants of the Canary Islands. And recent research has shown that they were originally from North Africa. Genetically, they are very close to them. And it is believed that Guanches migrated to this area around 1000 BCE, or maybe even earlier. So this is the story of them. What the term means, Guanche, it's a native term, Guanchinet, which means a person of Tenerife, because Guan is person and Chine is Tenerife, which is another island of Canarian islands. So, and then you can see also in many history books they talk about them, and here you see the early lifestyle of them imitated here. So what happened? We would like. Okay, there were also reports about them in earlier times, but for example, we can say that an account of the Guanche population may have been made around 1150 AD by the Arab geographer Muhammad al-Idrisi in the Nuzatul al-Mushtaq, a book he wrote for King Roger II of Sicily, where Idrisi reports a journey in the Atlantic Ocean made by the adventurers, Mugharririn, a family of Andalusian seafarers from Lisbon. The only surviving version of the book is kept at Bibliothèque Nationale de France and translated Pierre Amadé Jobert, and it reports that after having reached an area of sticky and stinking waters, the adventurers moved back and first reached an uninhabited island, which could be Hierro or even Madeira, where they found Hierro is another island of Canary Islands, and a huge quantity of sheep, which its meat was bitter and inedible. Then they continued southward and reached another island, where they were soon surrounded by barks and brought back to a village whose inhabitants were often fair-haired, with long and flaxen hair, and the women of a rare beauty. Among the villagers, one did speak Arabic and asked them where they came from. Then the king of the village ordered them to bring them back to the continent, where they were surprised to be welcomed by Berbers. Apart from the marvelous and fanciful content of his history, this account would suggest that Guanches had sporadic contacts with populations from the mainland. Al-Idrisi also described the Guanche man as tall and of reddish-brown complexion. Castilian Spanish conquest of the islands, the Canary Islands, started in 1402. The expeditions conducted by two French explorers who served the Spanish court, Castilian court. These explorers were Jean de Betancourt and Gadifer de la Salle, who conquered the island of Lanzarote. Gadifer would invade Lanzarote and Fuerteventura with ease because many of the aboriginals faced with issues of starvation and poor agriculture, and they readily surrendered to the Spanish rule. But the other five islands, I mean, next to what as I mentioned, Fuerteventura and Lanzarote, which were conquered easily by the Spanish, the other five islands, including Gran Canaria, which is the case here, and El Hierro, fought back. El Hierro and its population then were the next to fall. Then La Gomera fell. Then Gran Canaria, the island you see here, fell. Then La Palma, and in 1496, Tenerife. So you see, from 1402 to 1496, it took so long to conquer all Canarian islands, 7 islands. And then we have in the first battle of Acentejo, the first battle of Acentejo, which took place in May 31st, 1494. The battle was called La Matanza in Spanish, which means slaughter. Guanches ambushed the Castilians in a valley and killed many. Reports say that only 1 in 5 of the Castilians, explorers or conquistadores or invaders, survived, including the leader of the expedition, Alonso Fernandez de Lugo. Later on, Lugo would return to the island after building an alliance of the kings of the southern part of the island, and defeated the Guanches in the Battle of Aguirre. Let's come to the conquest of Gran Canaria, which took place between 1478 and 1483. And this is what we are concerned about, because this theme park is on Gran Canaria. So, 3 stages of the conquest of Gran Canaria. The first stage was between June and December 1478. And the first expeditionary force disembarked on La Isleta on June 24th, 1478, and this force was led or commanded by Juan Rejon and Dean Bermudez as representatives of the Bishop of San Marcial del Rubicon, Juan de Frias, who was a co-financer of the expedition. They established Real de la Palmas near to Barranco de Guiniguada on the site of the present-day Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, the capital of Gran Canaria. And some days later, the first battle of the campaign took place near to Real, where the islanders were defeated. This initial victory gave the Castilians control of the northeast corner of the island. So, the second stage was the Guanche resistance and Castilian divisions from the close of 1478 until 1481. This was a period which is marked by aboriginal resistance, where in the mountainous interior, later on I'm going to show you, here you can see also this mountainous interior, and the lack of man and materials and internal disputes between the invaders. The same procedure, Spanish invaders in South and Middle America had also lots of internal disputes because many of them were after, well, say fame or money. During this stage, Juan Rejon was dismissed on the orders of the Catholic monarchs. He was replaced by Pedro Fernandez de Algaba, who was then, later on, executed by the order of the deposed Rejon. Now, the naming of Pedro de Vera as the new governor of the island, and also the arrest of Juan Rejon, put an end to all these internal fights and that had continued until 1481. Now, the third stage was suppression of the Guanche resistance and conquest of the island. This happened 1481 to 1483. Pedro de Vera, who became the undisputed commander of the Castilian forces by that time on the island, resumed the conquest of the island's interior and the Guanche fiefdom of Caldar. He was able to do this because a large contingent of reinforcements had been seen from Gomero by Diego Garcia de Herrera. The Guanche leader, Doramas, was subsequently killed in the Battle of Arucas. The capture of Tenesor Semidan, king of Galdar, by Alonso Fernandez de Lugo was a major factor in the victory of the invaders. Tenesor Semidan was sent to Castile, where he was baptized with the name Fernando Guanarteme, and after signing the Cataluyut Pact with Fernando the Catholic, he became a loyal and valuable ally of the Castilians. Now, his actions have been interpreted in a number of ways throughout history. Some believe he was a traitor to the Aboriginal cause. Others think he was an able negotiator who saved many lives. On April 29, 1483, Guayarmina Semidan, considered to be Queen of Gran Canaria, surrendered at Ancite fortress. On the same day, Chief Bentejul and his shaman advisor Faikan committed suicide by jumping off a cliff while shouting "Atisterma for my land." Repeat. On the same day, Chief Bentejui and his shaman advisor Faikan committed suicide by jumping off a cliff while shouting "Atisterma for my land." Quite a sad story. Tagoror, or Council of State, was one of the most important collective organizations or bodies of authority in the Aboriginal Canarian society. It had members, and these members made up were basically from nobility there, and so what was there? I mean, in Tagoror, matters of civil order relating to state and justice were debated. Meeting would be convened in a place with stone seating, with one higher and more actually prominent seat reserved for the Guanarteme. Then we had the Sabor, and was another collegiate body, but one of the military character, and composed of the Guaires, possibly village chiefs. Native Guanche language is now only through a few sentences and individual words which survive, and supplemented by several place names. It has been classified by modern linguists as belonging to the Berber branch of Afro-Asiatic languages. There are recognizable Berber words, especially with regards to agriculture there, and numerous Berber grammatical inflections have been also identified within the Guanche language. However, there is a large stock of vocabulary that does not bear any resemblance to Berber whatsoever. So the language died out after the Spanish conquest of the Canary Islands, and when the Guanche ethnic group was assimilated into the dominant Spanish culture. Regarding butchering and killing animals, they were only in special places, designated places where they could be butchered and slaughtered, and it was illegal for unmarried men to do it, women or children, so to enter such places, right? Okay, so again to repeat, the Guanches were the white-skinned and fair-haired Aboriginal people of the Canary Islands. Because they're located close to Africa, the origins of Guanches have long presented a mystery for researchers. At least a genetic study was able to link the Guanches to some of the neighbors they have, and clearing up some of the questions regarding the background and family ties. A 2017 study provided clear evidence for a hypothesis supported by anthropologists for years, that Guanches were or are genetically linked to the Berbers of North Africa. They were also, the Guanches had used to have, of course, prisons as well. Why did they have prisons like any other society? Because they were criminals, and when the criminals were captured, arrested, or caught, and they considered them that they considered that they should be put to death and deserve death penalty, then they put them in a house which was used as a prison, as you can see here in this picture. So they had halls of justice, and the concept of justice was strongly ingrained and rooted in the Aboriginal mind. And there was a collegiate body consisting of the local king, Guantarteme, Faikon, and 6 members of the nobility representatives of them. And robbery was punished in case of petty theft or food. They applied the law of talion, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And in cases of physical injury by one person to the other, and also in cases it is merited the death, the suspect was taken to a type of prison while his guilt was decided if he was guilty or not. And if they found that he was guilty, then he was taken to the halls of justice and was condemned to death. And it was in a way that an executioner did it, and he did it by dropping a large stone on the head or ribs of the prisoner, who was then crushed to death. Here you see burial practices of Guanches and how they did it. Here they distinguished again between the peasants and also nobility. The peasants and common people, they were buried in tombs and holes outside the caves. Well, you can see here also some of them in the following pictures, as I will show it to you. I mean, also quite realistically depicted. You can see them here. All in all, I need to say that they did it in a, I mean, I would really recommend Mundo Aborigen. And then it's a very well-made theme park, and you can get a feeling about the culture which was conquered and lost, unfortunately, I need to say. And well, see you in the next video.